They called him the genius, a man who could turn pain into melody and heartbreak into harmony. But behind the piano, behind those dark glasses that hid more than blindness, lived a man consumed by desire, by women, by fame, by the thrill of forbidden love. This is the untold story of Ray Charles Robinson, the musical genius whose love life burned as fiercely as his voice. A story of passion, betrayal, addiction, and redemption. Of how the man who couldn't see saw everything through love. Ray Charles was born in Albany, Georgia, in 1930, poor, black, and surrounded by struggle. By 7, he had gone completely blind. But even before the darkness came, tragedy had already visited. He watched his younger brother drown, and that image haunted him forever. The blindness took his sight, but not his will. Music became his world. He learned piano by touch, emotion, and instinct. Every note became a way to feel what his eyes no longer could. By his teens, Ray was playing in juke joints, smoky, dangerous clubs where women, whiskey, and rhythm flowed all night. And from the very beginning, Ray's charm was irresistible. He wasn't handsome in the traditional sense, but his voice, his smile, his aura, it pulled people in like a magnet. Women loved his mystery. And Ray? He loved all of them. In 1951, as his career started to rise, Ray met Della Beatrice Howard, a beautiful gospel singer. She was strong, spiritual, and saw beyond the fame. She saw the man. They married in 1955, and Della gave him stability, at least for a while. But Ray Charles was never built for one woman. On tour, there were always admirers. Women waited backstage, drawn by the heat of his music. He could sense their presence, their perfume, their breath, their heartbeat, even without sight. And he had a weakness. He once said, "When I'm playing, I feel alive. When I'm with a woman, I feel human." Della tolerated it in the early years. She knew what kind of world her husband lived in. But soon, the affairs became too many to hide. There were dancers, backup singers, club waitresses, even married fans. Some nights, Ray juggled 2 women in 2 cities. And yet every morning, he'd call Della his anchor. The contradiction was intoxicating and destructive. By the late 1950s, Ray Charles was a superstar. Hit after hit, What Did I Say, I Got a Woman, Georgia on My Mind. His music broke racial barriers, blending gospel and blues into something entirely new. But fame only fed his appetite. His touring schedule was endless, and so were his romantic escapades. One of the longest and most notorious was with Margie Hendricks, the fiery, soulful singer from the Realettes, his own backup group. Margie wasn't just another lover. She was his musical twin. Bold, emotional, and fearless. Their chemistry on stage was electric. Their fights off stage were volcanic. Margie wanted to be more than his mistress. She wanted to be the one. But Ray refused to leave his wife. In 1959, Margie gave birth to Ray's son, Charles Wayne. Ray supported the child but kept the relationship hidden. To the world, Della was still his devoted wife. Behind closed doors, Margie was his muse, his chaos, his secret. Their love was doomed, but unforgettable. Margie once said, "When Ray sings, I know he's singing for me." And maybe she was right. Ray's affairs weren't his only addiction. By the early 1960s, heroin had him in its grip. Every city, every show, every lover, all blurred together in a haze of smoke and needles. Women tried to save him. Margie begged. Della prayed. But Ray was lost in the rhythm of his own destruction. One night in 1961, police raided his hotel room in Indianapolis. They found heroin, needles, and a woman who wasn't his wife. The headline screamed, "Ray Charles arrested in drug and love scandal." It was the first time the public saw cracks in the perfect image. Ray tried to clean up, but the pull was too strong. He checked into rehab and relapsed. Twice. His wife threatened to leave. Margie stopped performing with him. And in 1964, another arrest finally forced him to face the truth. After months of treatment, Ray kicked heroin for good, but the damage was done. Margie had drifted away. And within a few years, tragedy struck. She died in a mysterious car crash. When Ray heard the news, he locked himself in his dressing room for hours. No words, no tears, just silence. He never spoke publicly about her death, but those who knew him said he carried her ghost forever. Ray Charles was a genius and a father to many. Officially, he had 12 children with 10 different women. Unofficially, some claim there were more. Each affair brought new secrets. Some of his partners were fellow musicians. Others were ordinary women whose lives were forever changed by a night with a legend. Della, exhausted by years of betrayal, finally left him in 1977. She took their 3 sons and never looked back. Still, Ray kept close ties with all his children. He supported them financially and emotionally, but never married again. He called marriage a promise I can't keep. His later years were filled with reflection. He told a friend, "I hurt a lot of people, but I never stopped loving them." As the 1980s rolled in, Ray Charles had outlived most of his contemporaries. He was clean, sober, but not free from scandal. Whispers about tax issues, backstage affairs, and paternity lawsuits kept surfacing. One former girlfriend even tried to publish a tell-all book, calling him a man who played women like chords. But through it all, Ray's reputation as a musical genius remained untouched. He poured his pain into performances that felt like confessions. When he sang You Don't Know Me, audiences cried, not realizing he was singing to every woman he'd ever hurt. Ray once told an interviewer, "Music is the only mistress that never left me." And in the end, that was the truest love of all. In his later life, Ray became softer, more nostalgic. He reconnected with old flames, made peace with Della, and reached out to estranged children. He still flirted, still smiled that mischievous grin, but his heart was tired. Years of touring, addiction, and heartbreak had taken their toll. In 2004, Ray Charles passed away at 73. The world mourned, presidents, musicians, and millions of fans. But somewhere in that mourning crowd were the women who had loved him, lost him, and forgiven him. At his funeral, one of his former lovers whispered, "He broke my heart, but he gave the world his soul." Ray Charles wasn't just a musician, he was a contradiction. Faithful and faithless, tender and cruel, blind to the world, but able to see the truth of love more clearly than anyone. He redefined American music, blending gospel and sin, love and pain. And every note carried the story of the man behind the glasses. The man who lived too fully, loved too wildly, and sang too honestly. His legacy isn't just his songs. It's the lives he touched and the hearts he broke. When you hear Georgia on My Mind, listen closely. Somewhere in that trembling voice, you can still hear the women, the tears, the fire. Ray Charles, the man who turned sin into sound and love into legend. He couldn't see the world, but he felt it deeper than anyone ever could. He sang of love, lived for desire, and paid the price for both. Ray Charles, proof that even a broken man can create something eternal.